And we're live on YouTube. What is going on, everyone? This is your host of the most, Billy Jim, coming at you guys with live stream, joined by Lindy. Endzone was here last week when we were talking about everything with JC and Bird Gang 31. So you know what? What's going on, man? How you doing tonight? And you ready to talk about the birds and talk about some stuff?
Yeah, what's up, man? Good. I'm good. Glad to be back in the building here for round 2 after last week. Did quite a number on that stream, so we back.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And
yep, that was some good stuff. So it's been kind of a busy week since then. A lot of stuff's happened. You know, obviously there was the first preseason matchup against Pittsburgh. A lot of roster cuts happened, so we're going to be talking about all kinds of stuff tonight. So if you guys have not subscribed to Lindy Endzone, who drops dimes and drops buckets on the content, make sure you check out the link that's in the description and go subscribe him. Just hit 200 subscribers, working on 300. Let's get him there as soon as possible. So let's go ahead and we'll start with that preseason game. So as far as preseason games, they don't really count. So obviously the team lost. It's not that big of a deal. Our 4th and 5th stringers, whoever was playing in the 4th quarter, you know, these guys looked like they didn't know what the hell they were doing. So it was pretty terrible. But as far as the starters, I think the starters did pretty good. I think Jalen Hurts did pretty good. The only thing that I would say about Jalen Hurts, the only problem that I had was that one throw that he missed where Quez was wide open. Otherwise, Quez Watkins was obviously the player of the game. Had over what, like a 79-yard touchdown, but he could have had at least twice that if they connected on that one play. So, you know, that's something that we're going to look for in the game against the Patriots. Better ball placement on the deep ball right there, because we got some guys that can really run and get behind the defense. Devontae is very fast. Jalen Reagor is very fast. And Quez has shown that he's very fast. I actually didn't know this until I did some research, but when he was in college, he was actually a track star. You know, he ran track, and the guy is really damn fast. I mean, I knew he was fast just from watching him play towards the end of last year. He had that one touchdown against Arizona with the screen pass. So it really puts his speed on display, but the guy is really damn fast. He's probably the fastest guy on our entire team. So, you know, Quez really stood out to me, and Josh Sweat really stood out to me. It's like I always say with Josh Sweat, he's always disruptive. He's always messing up the play and getting in the backfield, getting to the quarterback, just being disruptive. So those were really the guys that stood out the most to me when I was watching that game. So what were your thoughts on that game? What players really stood out to you the most? And what do you think they need to improve on going up into this next game against New England?
Well, I think a lot of Eagles fans are going to be on the same page in terms of, you know, the players that stood out to them, because we're all asking for pretty much the same thing to happen here. You know, the first preseason game against the Steelers, yeah, we did go down 24-16. You know, and that primarily was, you know, due to the not lack of effort, obviously, because the talent level from first and second to third and fourth string, there's quite a difference there. I mean, we even seen bits of Tyree Jackson in the second string offense working with Joe Flacco, and he's around fourth, between third and fourth string on the depth chart. So he was making some strides in that game, as well as some other players in the second string. Realistically, Quez Watkins probably would have had almost 200 receiving yards in total in his first ever preseason game had Jalen Hurts hit him on that deep ball. And Yeah, and I'm not going to necessarily say off the bat that it was a difficult throw, but when like there was a couple of factors that went into it. Number one, Jalen Hurts was throwing from his own end zone, so you have to imagine that in a situation of that caliber, the Steelers, they could have very well threw the kitchen sink at him and maybe force a safety like we seen in the Cardinals game last year. Just aiding that pressure on Jalen, but he stood in the pocket. He was very composed. The pressure didn't really bother him, and he was smart with his decisions on when leaving the pocket. The other factor I think that went into that misconnection there was Quez did talk about that he got held up a little bit, and it was a slight one, but it was enough to kind of disrupt his route and slow him down a little bit. And if that didn't happen, he felt that they probably would have connected and good night Irene. So
yeah, definitely.
And we used to talk about this with guys like Deshaun Jackson all the time and bring up speed kills. So this is nothing new to us, as well as some other guys. I mean, at one point, Darren Sproles, Mighty Mouse, was pretty quick himself, and we see a little bit of that in Boston Scott, even though they don't have that long, lengthy caliber of speed, being able to sustain that speed that they run at. They have a bit of a different speed to them, but I digress. Nonetheless, and then also Quez was actually recorded. He actually recorded the fastest speed in week 1 of the preseason throughout the NFL at 21.46 miles an hour. KJ Hamler was right behind him at 21.38. And, well, side note, I would have loved to have KJ Hamler. KJ Hamler was one of my guys out of the draft. I would have loved to have him, but I'm still happy. I'm still happy with Rager. Either way, he was one of my guys. Another Penn State alumni that knew Miles Sanders pretty well. But it is what it is. Defensively, you also have to bring up Milton Williams in that second string defense.
Oh, definitely, he looked good too.
The multiple assignments that Jonathan Gannon is giving him right away to be able to play the tackle spot and come in as a DE. I like that Jonathan is putting that on him. He's testing his mental wit. Seeing how far he can push Milton, like the kind of workload that he can handle, and he put it on display. That one play where T.Y. McGill had the sack on it was either Mason Rudolph that was still in, or it was Dwayne Haskins, but nonetheless T.Y. McGill had a sack on that play. But Milton Williams just comes in off the right edge. I think if you're facing the Steelers end zone, he came off of that edge, working on the tackle. The tackle just he flat out lost as soon as they made contact, because Milton was a man on a mission. Even with the right guard coming in, it still wasn't enough help. He split between the two of them and was overbearing in his pressure. And because the guard had to shift over and help in protection, T.Y. McGill had a one-on-one that he clearly won himself. And, you had a sack created, and I would imagine Milton got the assist there. So you can only imagine that Milton Williams being a rookie, and I am going to bring it up because this is part of the analytics, but this guy having measurables similar to an Aaron Donald, for him to be doing what he's doing so far, you can only imagine the kind of disruption that he could possibly create if he is implemented in that first string rotation, which I think they're going to keep him around the second rotation, which is not a bad thing whatsoever, because we're still struggling with depth at that position right now. But all in all, man, between the first and second string for the Eagles, I was very satisfied. Jalen Hurts went 3 of 7, but if you
Hurts had that drop that killed the first drive.
Two drops would have made him 5 of 7 instead of 3 of 7. So without context, it doesn't look very good, but with context and going over the film, it looks better than you think. So yeah, I'm not worried. Again, this is the first preseason game. I also thought it was a positive that we didn't see Jalen Hurts necessarily rely on one guy to get open. He was, he was going through his progressions correctly, seeing just
Mm-hmm.
who was available on the field, like who was getting open, because there was some opportunity there. Rager was getting open, Ertz was getting open, Goddard was getting open. You have to imagine that maybe a couple of times Fulgham was getting open, but I don't think he had a single target. I don't think Arcega-Whiteside had a single target. So, but I do like how Hurts is managing the offense right now, not really picking out one guy like somebody that we used to know played here over reliance on Zach Ertz, but that's not the here nor there. So I got you.
I didn't say it. I didn't say it. I didn't say it.
But it's a great start. It's definitely a great start, and it leaves Eagles fans with nothing but optimism going into preseason week 2.
Yeah, man. You know what? I agree with you there. I think that the team clearly believes in Hurts, which is something that's been said a lot during this week. A lot of people have been saying that, the team is sold on Jalen Hurts, like meaning his teammates mainly. They're sold on him, man. They believe in him, and he has command of the offense, and he knows what he's doing. So I actually think that he's going to be fine as far as his game. Like, that's why I said that the only thing that I didn't like was like the overthrow. I feel like Quez had enough separation there, but you know what? It happens. It'll be all right. I think he'll work on stuff like that because that's just who he is as a person. He's a hard worker. That's just part of what his mentality has always been, just to outwork his opposition. So the things that he doesn't do, or the things that he needs to improve on, he's going to really focus on that. So that's stuff that Nick Saban and his other coaches have been saying for a while now. So I think that you'll see improvement in the next game. I definitely do. So yeah, I mean, the first game, it was all right. So we brought up Tyree Jackson, who was actually doing really well in that game and has done well in camp and been raising eyebrows. He's a quarterback turned tight end. Yep. And, he's been doing good. And some people have even been saying, hey, are we sure that Richard Rodgers is third tight end? Because Tyree Jackson, he could have something to say about that. Unfortunately, he has a back injury, and he is supposed to be out for 8 to 10 weeks. So, honestly, that really sucks. I hate it for him. I wish him nothing but the best. I hope he's able to recover and bounce back from this. Because we could honestly have a diamond in the rough here that we didn't even know about. So I hope that everything works out with that. But it does kind of suck that he did have an injury like this as well as he was doing. So what are your thoughts on that? And do you think that he's gonna bounce back from this? Do you think they're gonna try to keep him around because they think they do have a diamond in the rough there? Or what do you see happening here?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, I think one of the only ways that they can, keep him on the team and stash him on IR is if he makes it to the 53-man rotation. As far as I understand, he is ineligible for IR right now. I think he would have. I think he would have had to have been placed on IR before the start of training camp. So there's an ineligibility there with that in terms of just having that bit of insurance and stashing him away so you can bring him back later. And talking about that tight end 3 spot, another guy that would probably eventually have something to say about that as well as Jack Stoll. So the competition there is obviously tough, and then you bring back Richard Rodgers, who gave you quite a good deal of contribution to a injury plagued like voodoo of a football team during the pandemic. 4-11-1, and we don't have to. It's water. We don't have to go back there anymore. But all in all, he contributed pretty well. Especially when Zach Ertz went down and he wasn't available, and Dallas Goedert at one point, he needed a partner and he was battling ankle issues himself, and Richard Rodgers came in and looked like a number 2 tight end instead of a number 3. And let's not forget, this guy was he was pretty reliable at times for Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay as well.
Yeah.
So he knows what he's doing a little bit. As for Tyree Jackson, I thought since day one that he was going to be a project, along with guys like Caleb Wilson, and then when we tried Hakeem Butler as a tight end before he converted back to a wide receiver, which is his natural position, and it's another guy that might not even make the team, let alone the practice squad. We'll see. But I thought since day one that Tyree Jackson could have been our Logan Thomas type of story. How well he has developed and played for the Washington football team. He got himself a bag on an extension, and he's proven to be a great asset for Washington, division rival.
Mm-hmm.
And Tyree Jackson, he still has the opportunity to be that kind of guy. He seemed to have been one of Joe Flacco's favorite targets, and you can only imagine what he could do for a guy like Jalen Hurts. To formally play the quarterback position and then, turn to tight end to keep himself in the league. You have to think that was a difficult decision. Growing up, you always want to play one position, and then, just for the sake of security, you have to convert to something else in order to keep your job. Kind of like Greg Ward had to do. But through that, I mean, a 6'7" target, like 6'7", around 250. We're talking Harold Carmichael height here of what kind of target he would be for Jalen Hurts on the field if it ever got to that point that he would make like first or second string to be with the starters on offense. But this sucks. I'm glad it's not along the lines of a Carson type of injury when he had a fractured vertebrae in 2018. Yeah. This is more of I think this is more like a fractured bone, like a single bone in his back, that the injury is non-surgical, so it doesn't need a surgical repair. But, the recovery time is long, as it was stated, 8 to 10 weeks. So you're looking at like roughly 2 to 2.5 months of time that he's going to miss. And by then, we'll be well into the regular season by then. So, yeah, I mean, this sucks for him. But I think for his sake, it's going to come down to whether he makes it through the final 2 cuts and gets on this 53-man roster.
Yeah, definitely. And there's a lot of stuff we could talk about with the 53-man roster, including some roster cuts that did happen this week. The most notable one was running back Kerryon Johnson that came from Detroit. He's gone. Casey Tucker is gone, and Luke Jurgia, not sure how I say the guy's last name, but he's also a center offensive lineman. So he did not make it as well. So, the running back competition is something everyone's been talking about and saying, they've got so much talent in this room, so somebody was going to have to go. A lot of people have been wondering, why is Boston Scott still getting a lot of snaps? But, it's like I always say when it comes to this running back competition, you want guys that can do different stuff. And when you look at the main 3 running backs, they all do different stuff. Miles Sanders does something different. Jordan Howard does something different. And Boston Scott does something different. And Kenny Gainwell is their project rookie that they're going to try to develop. He's probably not going to get a lot of playing time as a rookie, but he's going to be there around these other guys, and he's going to learn and grow as a player. So that's pretty much how I see it shaping out. And that's pretty much how I've thought it was going to go the whole time. So with Kerryon, he was a promising player at one point when he was first coming into the league from Auburn. He had a good college career down there, but he just can never stay healthy. That's been his problem for his career. So I feel like that's ultimately what led to him getting being the first one out of the running back room. Guy just can't stay healthy. Not because he can't play or anything, or that he's trash or whatever. That's not the case. He just cannot stay healthy. Not really the most reliable guy in this running back room. So I really was not that surprised to see Kerryon getting the cut. So yeah, those are just my thoughts on that whole situation.
Yeah, well, I mean, if we go back to one of Kerryon's press conferences, I think more so his introductory press conference when some of the Philly sports writers talked about the health of his meniscus and his knee and how he's doing with it, and he mentioned at the time that he felt pretty good, but it was also brought up in conversation through questioning that he was going to keep a knee brace on throughout the season if he were to make a team. And I think at that point that may have been a red flag, as to how truly healthy that knee is going to be and if it's going to be able to, sustain the punishment that is the NFL. I mean, these athletes seem to be one in a million to the regular person, and in terms of having the talent level to be able to play a professional sport, so through that, I mean, this it has to be difficult for Kerryon to go through this once again after that meniscus tear, and we're seeing it with Andre Dillard as well. He had, he was another one. He was the second player on our team to have an MCL sprain, Devontae Smith being the first. But Devontae has made quite the a substantial stride in coming back to the football team. I don't know whether he's going to be participating in the preseason game against the Patriots. Depends on how precautionary they're still taking this right now. Even though he did participate in some team drills, he wasn't active in one-on-ones. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure where he is going to be come tomorrow. But I mean, with Kerryon, Casey Tucker, and Luke Juriga, at the time that they were all waived, I think it was on an injury designation. They all cleared waivers, so that makes them able. They were brought back to Philly and stashed on the IR. And in this case, they do not count against the official roster number. So we are still currently at the threshold that started yesterday, which is 85. But in terms of Kerryon being on IR, Casey Tucker and Luke Juriga, they're difficult. Those are difficult as well. That's offensive line depth that we could surely use at some point. Knock on wood that our first string stays healthy this time. For this regular season. Right. But for then, with Kerryon back with this injury bug, I don't like his chances of making the 53. We already have a good amount of talent in that running back room right now. Jason Huntley's trying to make his presence known, which he's an explosive player. Boston Scott's explosive. Kenny Gainwell's explosive. Miles Sanders is explosive. So you got four guys right there that do some similar things, but not everything entirely. And then you got your thunder and lightning combination. Once again, going back to, referencing 2019 when we first brought in Jordan Howard, and he's
worked out good back then.
And he's still looking pretty healthy right now. And, let's not forget, it's not like Jordan Howard is LeGarrette Blount type of old. I mean, when we picked up LeGarrette in 2017, I want to say he was 32 years old. No, Jordan Howard's only 26. and the shoulder stinger back in 19 was the only notable injury I think he has had in his career. So I'm not going to sit here and say that I think Jordan Howard is washed up. I think he's now back. I think
it just didn't work out in Miami.
No, he didn't. And part of that was I think part of it was a schematic approach with how they wanted to use Jordan in the offense, and the other part was just that he just fell out of it completely. He was mostly used on like goal line snaps and everything. His average per carry, and I think we can forget about that a little bit and allow ourselves to feel that he could be in a prime position to have a bounce back type of year, especially if, knock on wood, Miles Sanders goes down again. Because right now, Miles is only averaging about 12 to 14 games a season because of injury. So that is something that we do need to concern ourselves with. Aside from the dropping issue that Miles has, he hasn't played a full season yet, and he's going into his third year. So could this be the year that changes? But if Jordan continues to do what he does at that number 2 spot, I'm happy with the backup plan that we can fall on in case of injury.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Miles Sanders has been kind of injury prone his first couple of years. So, obviously having running back depth is important. So I think that's probably why we went out and brought in all these other guys, because you don't know, you hope Miles stay healthy because what he can bring to the table. But, it just hasn't happened. It's been a hamstring, a lot of soft tissue issues with him. So hopefully it's better this year. But another concern, not with injury, has to be addressed with Miles Sanders is the continued drops. People are saying that he continues to drop the ball during practice. When you look at his drop off as a receiver from last year to 2019, he had over 500 receiving yards. Last year, he had around 200, and there were a lot of plays where he just dropped the ball. And,
28 catches on 52 targets.
When he was able to affect the game as a receiver, running wheel routes and stuff out of the backfield, it really added a different dynamic to the offense. And I feel like the Eagles' offense can really put up some points if Miles Sanders is able to be a threat as a pass catcher. If he can catch the ball out of the backfield, make some explosive plays catching the ball as well as running the ball, this is a guy that people are going to have to pay attention to. And then you got Devontae Smith, Quez, Rager, Goddard, a lot of guys that can do damage as well in the passing game. So I feel like this is very important that he catches the ball and does better in that respect because, that's just been one of his issues dating back to last season. You kind of wonder what happened because he was doing really well as a rookie. But last year wasn't great, obviously. And this year they're saying that some of the issues are still lingering there in that respect. So got to catch the ball, Miles Sanders. That's something that I think needs to be brought up for sure.
Well, I think from what we've seen in spurts of practice and what we've heard with this Nick Sirianni offense, that there's going to be a lot of featuring of the running backs, especially in the combination of the run and the pass game. If we revert back to the way Frank Reich and Sirianni organized that offense for the Colts, when Naheem Hines and company, and to have your number one running back going into his third year, that's going to be playing for an extension at some point, to still have this kind of issue that I don't know. Is it stemming from 2020? Like did he carry that bug with him going into this year? I have no idea, but Yeah, man,
Don't know what it
I don't
is.
like it one bit. I don't like it one bit. I mean, this, like I said, this is a guy, and a lot of this was, quarterback dependency too. Let's not get it twisted.
Yeah.
A lot of it was quarterback dependency, but out of 52 total targets, Miles Sanders only caught 28 of those in 2020. That was his second year. His first year as a rookie, he seemed to be that do it all kind of back. I mean, we were watching him in third down situations when Jordan Howard was not on the field, and him being split out like in a second down type of situation. I can revert back to one of the most memorable ones of that rookie year was when we went to Minnesota to play the Vikings, and Carson had Miles split out on a wheel route. He beat his man, and he almost ran it for what was a 40 to 50 plus yard touchdown because he was making guys miss in the open field. Like that.
Yep.
That is the kind of talent that this kid has, and for a kid to come behind Saquon Barkley out of Penn State, I mean, there is a pedigree there, but we need Miles to put it together and show what he's worth. It's not like he's coming off of a nasty ACL injury like Saquon is, and Saquon's he's trying to get on that comeback, and for our guy to still struggle with something pretty critical in terms of a football player, especially the running back and wide receiver position. I'm not liking the sound of it. I'm really not.
Definitely. So yeah, that's totally a major concern. Birdman wants to know if Miles Sanders gets hurt one more time, would you consider him a bust? No, not necessarily.
Not off of injury, no.
If he started getting torn ACLs and stuff like every single year, then I think that's when you consider him being a bust. But Miles, if he gets injured, he's going to be out for like typically a few weeks. He gets a hamstring here or an ankle here or just basic type of injuries, mostly soft tissues, which can linger on during the season. So, yeah, I mean, not all guys that are injury prone are considered to be a bust, in my opinion, because he clearly has the talent and the ability. But you can obviously put the injury prone label on him without a doubt. But the bust label, I would say that's kind of a little bit extreme there.
I think the term bust can better be used to describe a guy like Josh Rosen, who was the 10th pick in his draft and can't really seem to get it together. I mean, he started for who did he start for when he came out of the draft? Arizona, and then Arizona goes right from him to Kyler Murray because Josh Rosen wasn't it. And then here he is on and off of rosters, and he just got dropped by the San Francisco 49ers. For a guy that was the 10th pick in the 2018 draft, and for him to be sitting there as a free agent because he can't get himself back on another football team when you were taking that high based on your quote unquote talent to begin with, I think that would be more bust consideration. So I would describe bust more on a talent perspective than your overall ability to stay healthy.
In my opinion, Derek Barnett is closer to being a bust than Miles Sanders is, due to the fact that he was a first-round pick, due to the fact that he really hasn't produced on the field. So contract year for Derek Barnett, really got to have a big season there. But, Derek Barnett has been a decent player, probably at best, and Barnett has not really done much. He was a top 15 pick in the draft. It took Brandon Graham enough time. It took him enough time to grow into the player that he was. He got off to a really slow start too. But, I just don't see anything special there. So Barnett, if he has another season where, he has like 4 sacks or something, then I'm going to have to say he's a bust, like for real. But Miles, he's still got that. If he can stay healthy, I think he's at least Pro Bowl caliber.
Well, yeah, I mean, Derek hasn't had the type of year that Miles did in both of their rookie contracts. Obviously Derek is not in his anymore. His 5th-year option was picked up for $10 million. Miles Sanders is still under his rookie contract in his third year right now, and he would be going into his 4th in 2022. And Derek hasn't put in the type of performance that Miles did as a rookie. We can continue to go back to that. Miles was a rookie when he had that nice year of about, 1,400 all-purpose yards, something like that, and multiple touchdowns from, whether it was passing or rushing. So we still have yet to see that kind of year, respectively, on the defense in Derek Barnett. And while part of that is due to injury keeping him off the field, but when he gets back on the field, it's not like he announces his presence again like he was missed. Where Miles offensively, we've noticed games where Miles was missed in that running back room, and I don't think we've seen the same with Derek Barnett at that defensive end position.
No, definitely not. You can even make the argument that Derek Barnett has been outplayed by Josh Sweat in particular, especially last season. So, Barnett has not done anything special for me. So that's why I feel like he's arguably under the most pressure on this entire team, considering he's a first-round pick, considering he is in a contract year and everything. So, if he's going to have his best season. Because, even if the Eagles don't bring him back, you're auditioning for other teams. So, this is the year that he really, really does have to produce for sure.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yep. So let's talk about some more guys. So I'm sure you've seen it. In fact, I know you've seen it, and anyone who is an Eagles fan has seen it. Jalen Reagor is making more ridiculous plays during practice, joint practice against the New England Patriots. That catch, he had another one, I think, last week, which was pretty good too. But this one was just a crazy catch for me, and I don't want to make too big of a deal about it because at the end of the day, you got to do this stuff in a real game, man. It's like what Allen Iverson always says. We're talking about practice, so I love to see it. I love to see it because clearly you got to have the confidence to jump up and just go up with one hand and, just grab the ball and come down with it. Great concentration, too. So I hope that Reagor carries this stuff into the game and brings the swagger and the confidence that he needs to succeed as a player because obviously a lot of people are down on him still, and we're down on him last year. He's got the whole Justin Jefferson thing that's going to continue to be over his head that people are going to hold against him. It's not really – it's not even his fault because of that. You could blame management, blame Howie Roseman and the scouts and people who decided that they were going to draft or not draft Jefferson. So, I don't feel like that's really fair to him in that respect. So I love it, man. I hope he continues to carry the confidence into this preseason and into the regular season because I think it's not really about his ability and his talent. I think he can do some things really well. He just wasn't really used the correct way by Doug Peterson and our other coaches from last season. So I feel like if he's used right, he'll be an effective player in this offense. It's really just a confidence thing for him. He's got to keep the confidence. He cannot get down on himself. I think he will thrive as a player if he's able to do that.
I think a lot of people were victim of misutilization in Doug Peterson's offense last year. Let's keep it one up.
Probably a shit ton of players.
But I'm on a similar wavelength with this practice thing. Now, if this was solely an Eagles practice, then I would understand. But it's a different element when it's a joint practice. I think this catch happened in one-on-one drills. So Reagor is going up against a corner that he doesn't necessarily know his tendencies in coverage. Whereas if it's one of his teammates, he can read them a little bit better. But in this case, going up against some guys in the Patriots secondary, now we don't know if it was one of the first string guys or the second string guys, but all in all, he still made the play. For just to have that level of concentration and to be able to, he had both hands up there, but he came down with it with one hand, and he's got a decent sized pair of mitts to be able to catch that football, because it seems like Jalen
can get
bulked up. I think he bulked up from year 1 to year 2, or he bulked up a bit, and he actually dropped weight. He has more. I think he has more muscle weight than he does.
He's built. Weight. He's like built. He's really kind of stocky. He's built kind of like a running back.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that's going to his advantage right now as well. The other advantage of this, with him making that catch, and people are calling it the best catch in camp, and I think rightfully so. But there's also a factor here of when these guys feed off their teammates. I mean, he's been seeing the work that Devontae Smith has been putting in at practice. He's been seeing the work that Quez Watkins not only shows in practice, but he showed in that preseason game. That kind of stuff is infectious, especially coming from your teammates, where it's like, this guy's eating. Well, I want to eat too, so I'm going to go and do this and see if you like it. So I think this is the kind of friendly, competitive edge that's helping Reagor that he didn't necessarily have last year. Like you said, we want to see this in games. And I do understand the fact that it did happen in practice, but at least it was a joint practice instead of a practice against his teammates. So that kind of elevates the difficulty a little bit. With that said, this preseason game is going against those same Patriots defenders. So if
he tries it again, man. I mean,
if he does
it again, we're gonna have to have another conversation.
If he does it again at the link, you can only imagine how loud those Eagles fans are gonna get when he bosses somebody. So
for real.
But I'm just happy overall. That Reagor is taking this all in right now. That was
definitely
that he struggled with last year. At one time he couldn't handle the criticism and the scrutiny of the Eagles fans, and he was going radio silent on Twitter and all this sort of things. Well, now he seems to have a different kind of rejuvenation to him, and all we expect out of him is to play like a first-round pick.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And we're gonna see if he goes up and does it again in the preseason game, then we're gonna have another conversation. So the Eagles and Patriots are getting together on Thursday for the second of 3 preseason games of this preseason. So, pretty much the same as last week. We're gonna just talk about the game a little bit. Whatever matchups, whatever players you're looking for to really do something. What do you like? What expectations do you have for this game? What do you really, really want to see in the second matchup that we have?
I want to see how this entire team handles going against one of the best coaches in NFL history. Now, we don't necessarily know how vanilla Bill Belichick is going to be defensively and offensively, but still, he's got a pretty deep bag of knowledge either way. So it doesn't really matter, like preseason game or not. It's still Bill Belichick. It's still Josh McDaniels, and for what it's worth, it's still Matt Patricia. So that's probably going to give Darius Slay some extra fuel to play for some good quarterback play and coverage. So we'll throw that out there a little bit. But man, I think this is. And this is going to be this is going to be on a lower level of when the Eagles face the Buccaneers and the Kansas City Chiefs in the regular season. Like, I think those two games are going to end up being the greatest tests and the best tests, the most important tests for the football team with a brand new head coach, and he's bringing all of his guys with him, and Jonathan Gannon being a first-time defensive coordinator. You have Sirianni as a first-time head coach / play caller, and he's got Shane Steichen helping him out. So they're going to have to go, they have to go against Belichick's defense, for what it's worth. Yeah, it's still a preseason game and whatever, but it's happening. So he has to go against Belichick. Then he's going to go against Todd Bowles in Kansas City. And then he's going to go against who's the D coordinator for Kansas City? Steve Sarkisian, I think. So he has to go against him. There is a lot of optimism when you're looking at like the amount of knowledge that Nick and company can soak in here when they play against these teams. So I'm excited overall, offensively and defensively, for when we face the Patriots. And first and foremost, I hope that everybody stays healthy. I think we can't handle any more injury, especially if something happens to one of our first string guys. I mean, Jason Kelce at one point, I think, had a scare. I think we had a scare with Jason Kelce yesterday, and then with Tyree Jackson going down, and then the guys being stashed on IR. Let's take a pause on the injuries here, and hope for some clean and organized football against one of the best coaches to ever do it.
Yeah, definitely, man. And I'll say this. I mean, you go back to a few years ago, Bill Belichick, he's not going to take it easy because it's a preseason game. I will tell you that much. No, I remember playing them after we won the Super Bowl. They were playing their starters a lot longer than we were playing ours.
Yep.
And they were preparing for that game. They were clearly frustrated because they lost to us in the big game. But, he was preparing for that game like it was the damn playoffs. So
playing almost full halves in the preseason.
So, Tom Brady was out there throwing darts against third, fourth stringers and stuff. It was crazy, but he's that type of coach. He's going to always prepare his guys, even if it's just preseason, even if it's exhibition, whatever. That's going to happen. So it is a good test. Bill Belichick, before he became a head coach, he was a great defensive coordinator. Won a Super Bowl with the New York Giants as a defensive coordinator too. Coach Lawrence Taylor, and a lot of great players there. So, he's a great defensive coach. He's the greatest overall coach of all time. But, he understands defense really well. So I think he is going to try to throw some heat against Jalen Hurts, who's not a rookie quarterback, but a young quarterback with minimal experience, to say the least. So, we're going to see how Jalen responds to that. If he gets different looks, how is he going to adjust? Is he going to change plays? Is he going to do what he has to do to fight back against what Bill is throwing at him? That's something that I'm looking forward to. How does Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni adjust to Bill Belichick and what he's doing on defense? So that's the number one thing. Like I said earlier, better ball placement on those deep throws. I want to see Jalen connect on a couple deep balls if possible. We do have guys that can get behind the defense. We have quite a few that can actually do it. It's not just like we have one guy who's a burner, one guy who's a possession receiver. Devontae, granted, he may or may not be playing because they're trying to play it safe with his injury. But he's got speed. He can get behind the defense. Rager can get behind the defense. Quez can clearly get behind the defense. So, that's a lot of speed to have on the offensive side of the ball. So I feel like some of those opportunities will be there. as they are available if these guys win their matchups against these corners. So that's something that I'm looking forward to. On the defense, I want to see more of these young guys like Milton Williams. He had a strong first game, so I want to see if he's able to continue to take more strides and, hopefully get to see him going into the regular season as a part of the second unit for that defensive line, because if he's playing defensive tackle, obviously Fletcher Cox and Javon Hargrave are going to be your first two guys because it's a lot of money to be invested into them for them to not start. But, those are clearly our starters there. But Milton, I think he has a lot to offer. I'm looking for him to do some stuff. The competition with Derek Barnett and Josh Sweat is going to continue to heat up. Like I said, Derek Barnett, you got to do some stuff, my man. This is your time. This is pretty much your last chance. Even if you don't come back to the Philadelphia Eagles, you got to audition for another teams and have teams show teams that you're worth it, So he's got to really put the work in there. Josh Sweat, I think he's continue to take strides and be a great defensive end for us. So, I don't know how it's going to shape out, man. I don't know what's going to happen, but those are really the main things that I am personally looking forward to in this preseason matchup.
Yeah, no doubt. I had another point, and do we see a little? Do we even see some J.D. Arcega-Whiteside? Who knows? I mean,
I don't even know, man.
I'll just throw that out there. And it sucks as well because I mean we haven't necessarily heard a whole lot about Travis Fulgham either. The talk of the town has been our quote unquote speed receivers in practice.
Yep.
Rager making plays and Devontae Smith looking good the way he does. Quez Watkins making some moves there. John Hightower probably would have been another one of those guys had he not have gotten hurt. I think he is still limited too. So I think he's going to end up. I think he's going to end up getting victimized possibly by these next rounds of cuts if he doesn't get back on the field. We always know the best ability is availability, and that's one thing that's probably going to hurt Hightower, especially with Devontae Smith being there and another first-round draft pick at wide receiver. So you got him and Jalen Reagor, and then Quez as a sixth-rounder, aiding in the contributions that he's doing. John's pretty far behind the eight ball right now. So will we see some of him eventually? Maybe Arcega-Whiteside, because he always seems to appear in practice, but not so much in preseason games or the regular season. He doesn't seem to necessarily be trusted all that much. And I just talked about Travis Fulgham, how he's a little bit disappointing. So, man, yeah, I mean, that's what I guess that's what it's going to come down to. Zech McPherson is another guy to look at going against this Patriot offense. Will we see him a little bit in the first string? Probably not. He'll probably more so command the second. So he would have to. He's going to go up against Mac Jones most likely if they give Cam the go with the starters. So
right.
But I mean. What's another thing that I can bring up? The linebackers have been looking good lately. That trio of Alex Singleton, TJ Edwards, and Eric Wilson. TJ had an interception in yesterday's joint practice. I think Eric Wilson ended up having one. Alex Singleton had a diving interception, really going for that football. And I love the fact that these guys are buying in to the hits principle that Jonathan Gannon is implementing. Like he's not allowing for a lot of dead balls. He wants these guys to be aggressive and create that turnover and cause interceptions. Something that was like once in a blue moon with Jim Schwartz, and thankfully that's not going to be the case anymore. So man, we got a lot to look forward to, and I'm happy with our progress so far.
Yeah, I mean, another point I want to bring up is how with Jim Schwartz, the Eagles have always been struggling against mobile quarterbacks.
Yes.
And, so that's what I want to see how the defense does against Cam Newton, who is still a mobile quarterback, even though he's past his prime and he's a lot older now. But he can really move and do some damage with his legs and his feet. So I want to see how he handles going up against mobile quarterbacks, because we do have a guy like Dak Prescott in our division who's done really well with zone reads and using his feet as well. You got to play guys like Patrick Mahomes this year, which is going to present a real challenge. So how does he defend against guys that are really good at extending plays and using their feet to, run for first downs and do all that sort of thing? So I really want to see how he's going to game plan against Cam Newton.
Daniel Jones, when he doesn't trip himself up.
Yeah, that's literally still can't believe that. He's talking about when Kevon Wallace told Cam he was like the check down Charlie or check down King or whatever. Yeah, that was pretty good.
Check down King. Yep,
that was pretty good.
That was funny. I love it. I mean, this is a guy. This is a guy in Kevon Wallace that a lot of people have also been criticizing on Twitter and social media, that he's all about that. Like, he was all about that talk on social media, and he was saying this, and he was saying that, and he his profile picture has Wolverine in the background and everything, and people are like, oh, well, we want to see that on the field. Like, where's that on the field? And he's now starting to implement that a little bit. He was getting under Cam Newton's skin. He's backing it up with his play, and that's a good thing for him too, because I do believe he is eligible to play tomorrow. Coming off of his injury, he was way ahead of schedule. Some people thought it was a little bit worse, but this is a guy that's playing for. This is a guy that's playing in a pivotal position right now, because the safety position's not very deep. We don't exactly know when Rodney McLeod is coming back. Andrew Adams is more of a special teams Chris Maragos, type of specialist, to handle the special teams. And the depth there, like, are we really going to end up wanting to throw Jacoby Stevens back in the mix when we already know that he's not fast enough to play the safety position, and that's why he got moved to linebacker? So,
probably not.
Kayvon's in a prime position right now, and this is the time where we need him to show his worth. Being picked, I think he was a fourth round pick. So, I mean, coming from a stout Clemson defense, your time is now, man, and let's see it.
Yeah, Kevon Wallace is a dude that I've been trying to watch out for, because he didn't really play that much during his rookie year.
And he got used by tight ends, man.
We got to see him be better. We got to see him do better and take more strides this year, because Rodney McLeod is still technically injured, and he's coming off like a catastrophic, brutal injury on his knees. So, even if he were to come back, like week 1, it takes a long time. It would probably be halfway through the season before, Rodney is probably feeling like himself again. Even if you've done all the rehab and all the stuff and you're technically cleared to play. Cleared to play doesn't always mean that you're feeling right when you're coming off of this stuff. I mean, you remember when Carson Wentz came back against the Indianapolis Colts, who he's now playing for, and he as the season went on, you could tell that something wasn't right there, and that's just because he was obviously came back early. So you don't want to rush. First of all, you don't want to rush the injury. They're bringing guys back from an injury like that. So that's why Kevon Wallace is going to have to step up and show that, he can be the guy back there. Because the Eagles, the safety position is something that needs to be evaluated for the future. You have guys that are, veterans back there, guys that are on one-year deals like Anthony Harris. But the Eagles need a long-term answer at at that position. So Kevon Wallace has to show that he is the answer for that position. And, hopefully he will take the strides and show that he is.
And yeah, I mean, I didn't even bring up Anthony Harris. I didn't bring up Anthony Harris on purpose.
That's a great point, JC.
Yeah, I didn't bring him up on purpose, just because of, us talking about Kevon Wallace, and this is a guy that, that we're trying to develop internally. This is a in-house type of player. But, at the same time, Anthony Harris, yeah, he's here on a 1-year deal. What we're looking for a sense of security. And yeah, and it's definitely true that Kevon may benefit from that Jonathan Gannon style of defense. He may benefit from that. And that's part of the reason why Anthony Harris is here, to help some of these guys along from a player perspective. So, I mean, if worse comes to worse and Anthony Harris still ends up being the guy outside of Rodney to lead that safety group, he may play himself into an extension. I mean, yeah, He's not necessarily that old either. Him and Steve Nelson are the same age. They're both 28. So, I mean, it wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing if you kept Anthony. It would surely help your depth. Andrew Adams is another guy that's only here for 1 year, and they're only really looking at him for special teams. But, yeah, I mean, I think I do definitely think that this is Kevon's time. And, if we think about it, Jonathan Gannon was probably the defensive coordinator that some of these players have needed based on their strengths of talent.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when you look at Gannon, he's a former secondary coach, so that's why I'm excited for these DBs, because Jim Schwartz obviously did not put the corners and safeties and secondary players in the best possible position to be successful. That's kind of a nice way of putting it, with his questionable plays on defense, where we would have guys like 25 yards off the ball. Like it was kind of crazy that he thought that some of these plays would work. But you know what? I think that all these defensive backs are going to benefit from having a guy who's been coaching secondary most of his career. So I think he knows how to coach DBs very well. I mean, even if you look at just last season with the Colts, they brought in
wasn't he the guy
Xavier Rhodes? I almost forgot.
Wasn't he the guy that resurrected Xavier Rhodes? Yeah.
I just almost forgot his name for a second, but yeah, he pretty much was with the Vikings, and then he went downhill in a hurry. He used to be one of the best corners in the league, and then he just hit a wall, and then everyone's like, "Man, this guy's washed." Colts took a chance on him, 1-year deal with that contract there, and they really turned him around into being a good player again. So I think that he can turn a lot of these guys into, quality players, just because we saw what they were able to do with Xavier Rhodes last year. That's a really good comparison. So, some of these young guys, some of the guys that have been around for a while, I think we're going to see some good stuff with the secondary for sure.
Yeah, that's another good point too, JC. TJ Edwards only has 1 year left on his He only has 1 year left on his deal right now, so we also need to see the linebackers step up, and I think they are. I think they are for the most part, especially the first string guys. Outside of Eric Wilson and Alex Singleton. I mean, TJ Edwards is making himself known again. We've always seen him to be a very good run defender, but that was one thing that he was lacking was in terms of coverage. So now he's getting more to a 50-50, and that was him and Alex Singleton had similar issues that they were trying to work around. But one was better than another to a fault in a different category, and I think it was like an opposites attract sort of thing. Like when we see how he's seen Andre Dillard to Jordan Mailata. Mailata is very good with the bull rush, but he's not there. He's not necessarily there mechanically with his feet, but he's made some substantial strides. Whereas Andre Dillard being a first round pick, very good with his footwork, but he just doesn't have the wings. He doesn't have the arm length and the wingspan to be able to handle a bull rush. He's been constantly bullied by Barnett was bullying him, Josh Sweat was bullying him. And this is kind of similar between Singleton and T.J. Edwards, but the two of them are looking pretty good. I mean, in that preseason game against the Steelers, Alex Singleton, I think he had like 7 tackles by himself. And that's one thing that we have known him to be able to do is rack up those tackles.
He led the team in tackles last season.
Yeah, I mean, not in the way of Nathan Gary where they had no value whatsoever. Like, no, this isn't these aren't Nate Gary tackles. These are Alex Singleton tackles that they're actually worth something when he's making plays on defense.
Right. Yep.
I had to throw it in there. I mean, Nate Gary was a guy that didn't even make it on the Niners roster. So, that's the value that he has. Way to go, Jim Schwartz. But and I'm not going to entirely blame Jim on that one either. The linebackers coach, that's also his fault because they both had the same praise. But that's not the here nor there. But speaking of the linebacker spot, yeah, I think that's another important position because Nick Rallis, their linebackers coach, is the same age as these guys. So
kind of crazy.
There's a good intrigue, there's a good intrigue factor of another young mind that's actually in a coaching position, how he is working with these guys, and I think that kind of youth presence adds. It's like I don't know how to describe it, but it's different. And I like that because Nick Rallis is also a guy that's being brought up by Jonathan Gannon from his wisdom and his advice, being in these coaching positions throughout the league so far in his career. So between the two of them and then others alike in that defensive coaching group, Tracy Rocker for the D linemen, whether it's Michael Clay for special teams or Denard Wilson for the secondary who came over from the Jets, and he seems to be a very respected guy at his coaching position. I'm liking, bottom line, I'm liking a lot of the moves that the Eagles have made in this offseason, and so far with how they look in practice, it seems to be paying off. I mean, we don't necessarily have a lot to complain about, and I think that's the most important part.
Yeah, you know what? I mean, I just want to say this about the linebackers. I've never been on here saying that I think that the linebacker group is not good, but there's just a lot of guys that you don't know about because last season they weren't able to play and they didn't really get the opportunity to get on the field because of Jim Schwartz and whoever else had a hand in this, allowing Nate Gary to play. You're taking valuable snaps from guys that deserve to show what they can do. So we don't know about Davion Taylor. We don't know about Sean Bradley. So that's why you want to see them do something in these preseason games and carrying on into the regular season because the defense looks pretty good. The defensive line is obviously not going to be an issue. Our defensive line has never been an issue, actually. So, that's good there. With the addition of Steve Nelson, with Darius Slay, Maddox as a slot corner, and if we get Rodney back at some point, he's right. He's a lead. He's one of the best leaders in our locker room. So he's going to be the captain of that defense or one of the captains. So and then you got guys like Anthony Harris who have done really well in Minnesota. So the linebacker is the only real question mark. And if they can do pretty decent enough, I'm not asking you to do anything crazy, just enough to get the job done. Just don't be terrible. That's all I'm asking. Defense can be pretty damn good, I think.
Yeah, I think it was just last year the linebacking core was terrible. Based on the scheme, based on the scheme that they had to run and who was leading the linebacker core. So I think last year it was terrible, and then this year the question is not so much the talent level, but it's just what does the depth look like?
Right.
I don't think anyone was exactly paying attention to the depth of the linebacking core because they were just giving us such fits all year because they just weren't a supported cog in that Jim Schwartz type of defense where you're going to see them be a little more active in Jonathan Gannon's, aside from the secondary. And, I think that's I think that's the difference there.
JC wants to know what we think about the Tyree Jackson injury because that was obviously the hot news of today. We talked about this a little bit earlier, but I'll just say that it sucks. It does, man. I mean, Tyree Jackson was one of those guys that I was really excited about. I was really watching him, keeping my eyes on him as just as a sleeper because he's done great as just transitioning from quarterback to tight end. He's really been raising a lot of eyebrows. So, going now with that back injury, it's obviously a setback for him. It obviously hurts his chances of, being on the team for this season. Because we don't know what would have happened if he never got hurt. We don't know if Richard Rodgers for sure was going to get that third spot. For all we know, Tyree could have surprised us and he could have got that third spot if this didn't happen. So it's obviously, I hate it for him. I hate it for his career because, he's obviously not a well-known, and a lot of teams probably aren't going to be lining up to try to get him. But, it's a setback for his career. It does hurt his chances of making the team. So I really honestly, I hate it, and it's really unfortunate.
Yeah, man. Like I said earlier, I think this was having a development of a Logan Thomas effect. What the Washington football team was able to do with Logan at that tight end position, another guy, quarterback, converted tight end, and he knew that he was in a position where he had to make a change, or his chances of staying in the NFL were going to run thin. And Tyree accepted the challenge. He took it and ran with it. Literally, whether it was some nice routes in the preseason game against the Steelers, you've seen Joe Flacco try to hit him with multiple balls, and then what he's able to do in practice. It was a very nice development. It was,
Yep.
But I do like the approach that he's taking right now. He didn't voice any negativity on Twitter. He knows what he has to do, and he's got quite a supportive fan base behind him. So
Definitely,
we'll definitely say that. I mean, there is definitely a chance that he'll probably stay here throughout the 53. Unlike a guy like Kerryon Johnson, who actually is on the IR right now. I think Tyree Jackson showed a little more at his position that Kerryon Johnson has so far through camp. So if Kerryon is still here for now on IR, unless he gets waived again, then I don't see why Tyree Jackson can't make it.
Yeah, that's a great point. So, yeah, I hope he does make it too, because he could do something if he gets the opportunity. I mean, we saw the same kind of story with Greg Ward, who was also a player that was a quarterback turned another position, turned wide receiver. His first few years, he just struggled to make the team. He could not make the team. It took the Eagles being decimated by injuries for him to really get his opportunity to show that, he could be a decent player that can at the very least contribute a little bit. So I hope he does get the chance to prove himself, and I hope this is not the end of the road for him. I hope the injury is not, that bad. I mean, back injuries, knee injuries when you're playing a combat sport, or not a combat sport, but a contact sport like football. It's they can be really tough. So I hope he's able to get the right treatment. Like, obviously medical staff has been questionable with the Eagles for a few years now. So, hopefully he gets the right treatment, he gets back on the right track, and we see him out there real soon.
Yeah. Well, at least Greg Ward showed to be better than Khalil Tate, because he did have competition there for quarterbacks turned receivers. I think Khalil Tate was another guy, and Greg Ward obviously showed that he was better in that type of conversion. But in terms of Tyree, I think the only thing he's got to worry about is how the rest of the depth chart plays. I mean, because his coaching staff, between Sirianni and obviously Howie Roseman has a say in this, based on roster construction. It's just going to come down to how the rest of the depth plays. Are they going to need to keep a guy like Richard Rodgers around? How well is Jack Stoll going to look? Is Zach Ertz still going to remain an Eagle? There's a lot of questions that you can ask. And
there's a lot that goes into it. Yep, absolutely.
If Tyree still remains, then if Tyree still remains, then then so be it. Great continuation for him. To be able to work on his game, but yeah, man, there's still questions to be answered.
Right. So I think that's a good stopping point for us tonight. But, it's been real. It's been great talking about the Birds with you, Lindy. So before we sign off of here, we want to thank everyone that did tune in. Thanks for liking the stream. And some of you guys, Birdman, you shared it earlier. So thanks for bringing more people here. So if you guys want to bring this to even more people, go ahead and hit that thumbs up and check the description box if you have not subscribed to my boy Lindy. He's really putting in the work, so make sure you go check him out as well. And, it's very possible that we will see you guys yet again next week to talk about the second preseason game, among other various topics about the Philadelphia Eagles. But, you got anything you want to say, Lindy, before we sign off? Any projects, any stuff that you're working on right now? Feel free to tell everyone.
Not necessarily at the moment. I'm just currently waiting on answers, in terms of collaborations go. I'm pretty excited to do a live play-by-play of the preseason game tomorrow.
Nice.
In which I may have some co-host positions open if people are wanting to join me in watching the game and, breaking it down and going over it as it happens. But, other than that, my Dallas Mavericks are also keeping me busy as well, finding out what their next move is. And after the Luka Doncic extension,
got paid.
Joel Embiid just got paid, and he loves to still be in Philadelphia, and kudos to him.
Good for him, for real.
The team loyalty, I think is very important to a lot of us fans, especially in the age of the NBA that we are in now, where guys just want to.
There's no loyalty in the NBA.
Yeah, they just want to
rarely see it.
To go for a title. And I mean, perfect example is Giannis stuck it out in Milwaukee, and hard work pays off at the end of the day, so long as the organization you play for supports you and puts the right pieces around you. Giannis got the most of it, so let's hope that Luka and Embiid,
get the same treatment,
because they deserve it. They deserve it both ways. But yeah, man. Other than that, I'm pretty much over here, taking it 1% better at a time, like Nick Sirianni always says.
One step at a time.
Yeah. Yeah, one
Another
sub
thing,
at a
Nick
time. Don't
Sirianni,
worry.
man. What? Before we sign off, I forgot to talk about this earlier. Nick Sirianni actually said that he talks to every single player that he cuts. Like, have you ever heard about? I've never heard of a coach that does that. I think that's really cool though.
Yeah.
Like that, he's taking that extra step to let these guys know that he still appreciates them, and he tries to let them know like what did they, not necessarily what did they do wrong, but what you can work on to get better, so you can grow, as a professional. So I think that was pretty awesome when I heard that story. So Nick Sirianni, not a guy that I knew a lot about, other than he worked with the Colts, he worked with the Chargers, some other stuff, but I really like him as a person and a coach, and I think he's going to do great. So that was a really awesome thing to hear about.
It was a great sign to see, because it's not even it's not even just an approach of like a business or a professional level. Like he's getting down to a person, like a personable level, and and still making these guys feel like they belong in the league, and that their contributions, even though that they didn't make the team, their contributions were still important. Like he's still making them feel like a human being. Like, I just didn't you weren't used just for your services, and then just get out of here, and like I don't give a bleep about you anymore. No, it's
exactly.
It's an awesome approach that he took, and it's just another thing that we have no complaints about with him being the head coach so far. But eventually down the road, we're going to see some scrutiny later down the road, especially I'm just
waiting for all the people that made fun of him for stuttering at his press conference. I'm waiting for what all those people say when he actually does a good job. So
absolutely,
that's all I really got to say about that. Anyway, guys, this is your host with Mostly Jim. This is Lindy Endzone, dropping buckets, dropping dimes, and we'll check y'all another time.
Yes, sir.